We got 3 of these Makatagans that came from Ben Orford in the UK. They definitely eat up the green wood pretty good, for sure. Remember that these tools are made for cutting towards you. They'll last you for a long time. I've got a lot of respect for Ben Orford. He makes some really, really nice green woodworking tools. He does really, really nice green woodwork, period. A lot better than I can do. But I sure like playing with it, playing at it. There seems to be kind of a direct relationship between working wood, carving it like this, and flint knapping. Because you can see that you've got a hollow area here where you've taken out a chip, and then you've got a higher ridge. And when I come back in the second time, for the second pass, I'm basically knocking that ridge down, which creates another ridge. And I just keep working across those ridges to get the depth I want. One thing I find with these tools is that if you kind of roll the wood like this on your leg as you're carving and almost hold the tool stationary, it allows you to get some really deep bites in the wood across the grain like this. As you start to get deeper into this bowl, you want to kind of gauge it with your fingers and see what you got, because you're going to have a tendency to want to go too deep, especially with a thick piece of wood like this. But I really find that I like to keep my wood pretty whole while I'm doing the bowl portion of the spoon, and then carve the bits that aren't spoon away after the fact, and that seems to work well for me. Everybody does things a little bit differently. I think you just have to find what works best for you. Now, Ben makes several different types of tools in these Makatagans. I've got a tighter one here as well. That's got a little bit tighter crook on it. Here. And these are set up specifically because I'm left-handed. These are set up as left-handed carving tools by Ben for me. And this allows you to really get into some of those tight squeezes to get the shavings out that you need to get out. I notice a lot of guys have a tendency when they do this spoon carving stuff to try to make these things all smooth and flat and perfect, and I kind of like these gouge marks in the wood because they make it, you know, it makes it very apparent that you made the thing with a hand tool and not a different instrument, you know. and you made it. So now I'm just kind of going through here with this smaller tool, just taking very small smoothing flakes, very much like sharpening flakes you'd take after you flint knapped. And this is really not the final touches, but it's all I'm going to do before I carve the rest of the spoon out. It's just to get me where I want to be. We could continue with these smaller flakes a little bit if we wanted to, but I tend to believe if you start going after it too long, you end up going too deep, and then you have a problem on this back side. We don't want that either. So I think we're going to call that pretty fair for the moment, and we'll see about getting this thing, getting some of this carved off that's not spoon. So we've banged a lot of this off with just a carving axe real quick. We come back in with our knife now and just start carving away here. Got whatever doesn't look like spoon. So I'm kind of flipping that thing a little bit as I'm carving, just to kind of not get any long shavings. And I'll come back in after that and take some of the longer shavings out after I get my initial shape of the back side of this thing that I'm looking for here. And this could all be done very easily with a draw knife. We can knock this part out, you know, in a matter of seconds, probably a minute or two. We can knock this whole handle out on our shave horse over here with no problem. But doing it by hand with a hand tool like this, a little at a time, is going to take quite a bit more effort to get the same job done. And I think that's important to understand as well, is that there's certain areas that certain tools are great at. Carving out the bowl of the spoon and things like that. These Makatagan tools are great for that. And they'll do, you know, everything. They'll do the complete spoon if you need them to. We wouldn't have had to use the axe at all if we didn't want to. We could have done all of this without the axe very easily, but at the same time, it also takes more time and energy to get the same result in the end. So I think there's something to be said for that as well. So now I'm just kind of stroking through here, taking a little bit longer shavings off of this thing, using this thing more like a draw knife, which is basically what it is, a handheld draw knife. Got to be careful not to get too deep with it, because it will have a tendency to go deep on you if you're not careful. We got some area back here in the back. It's pretty fat. It needs to come down anyway. I'm not worried about a few shavings that are fairly heavy right there. But you can kind of turn your wrist up as you're carving with it, and that'll bring it up and out of the cut. Like this. And one thing you can also do with this Makatogan, just very much like a chisel or a draw knife, because it's a one-side bevel, you can turn it upside down and use that for more fine carving tasks. Like this. To get some of your smoothing and your rounding done once you've removed the major amounts of material that you want to get rid of. You can start to do some of your final rounding tasks with this portion of the blade, with pushing strokes instead of pulling strokes. Now I got to tell you that I'm really impressed with Ben's tools. When it comes to fine carving tasks and things, it's effortless with this tool to shape up fine edges and get very simple fine shavings to get definition in your piece. You know, if you're carving a spoon or whatever, you're trying to get some definition on your bowl where your connecting point is to your handle there, like this drop down ledge I'm carving on here now, it's just absolutely effortless to make that happen. Alright, now we're going to start hogging some meat off the front of this bowl. And again, you know, turning this knife upside down doesn't let it go real deep into the material, but it really allows you to get a lot of material off of this thing on a push stroke if you need to do that. You can see how that's just hogging material off of there. Now, the best thing to do would be to save the edge on this tool and use your knife. But if this is the only tool that you had handy and available, it'll definitely do the job all by itself. So before I carve this completely off, I'm going to try to start shaping into my bowl a little bit. That'll still give me something to hang on to before I finally get rid of it. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to just, before I start messing too much with the end of this thing, I want to just take chips out all the way along this bowl, just to kind of give it that hand finished look. I don't want any smooth surfaces really left on here where the tree hasn't been carved, where we just ripped the outer bark off of it, like on this back side. I want to go ahead and put chips, just like little napping chips, all the way around this thing. Toughest place to work on this whole spoon is right here on this end grain, where that end grain comes into the spoon where you split it in half. That's some really tough wood right there. So you just gotta take your time at it. You're gonna thin back in here a little ways too before it's over with, but you really got to get this part here with the final shape first. and then you can kind of tackle the other after you get some definition of where your actual bowl is going to end up. Okay, so that's pretty much as far as I'm going to go with the knife right now, and that's a usable spoon as is, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of sandpaper to it, but I don't want to remove all of the hand carving marks because I want it to look handmade. But I do want to smooth up, especially the bowl area, if I'm going to eat out of it. And we're going to soak it in oil, and we'll have ourselves a mighty fine tulip popper spoon. Guys, I appreciate you joining me out here today. Just carve a quick little grog spoon here, a tulip popper with some of Ben Orford's Makatoggins. I've been meaning to try my hand with those Makatoggins for a while. Just hadn't had a chance to get out here and do it. So I thought today I'd just come out here and use a piece of the popper I cut yesterday while I was working on the Woodcrafter's bench and make a spoon. Didn't take too long, hour and a half maybe at the most. Like I said, we used pretty much nothing more than a carving axe and the Makatoggins from Ben Orford to make it. I encourage you to check out his website. His name is Ben Orford. He's in the UK. Does some fantastic green woodworking. Makes some nice tools as well. I'm Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. I appreciate you joining me here today. I thank you for your views and your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, for all of our instructors, sponsors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.